Want a quick report? There's none there?
Okay, we're on the air.
Until whenever this ends.
I'll call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for February 8th, 2023. We have, let's see, Jake's not here tonight, and Jeff is not here tonight, so I'll do the appointment. I just want to start with letting people know that this room has two exits. They're on the right-hand side of the audience, they're at the front of the room and the back of the room. If we need to evacuate for any reason, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, move away from the building, and don't come back into our fire officials have instructed us to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and we'll pledge allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very sharp pain in my head.
What?
I said, I just got a very sharp pain in my head.
Okay, Jake's not going to be here, so I'll appoint Ted to vote for Jake, and Jeff's not going to be here, and I'll appoint Jason to vote for Jeff. And that gives us 9 voting members, as we have all of our ex officios here. And tonight's meeting, we have administrative board work first, where we get our business done. We have one public hearing. There's no conceptual plans or new plans or anything, but the public hearing deals with a rezoning on Rockingham Road. And I will start with administrative board work. We need to approve our minutes of the January 4th meeting and the January 11th meeting, and I'll take those motions separately in case someone was absent from a meeting and wants to abstain.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of January 4th, 2023.
I have a motion by Al. Do I have a second? Second by Jason. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Abstentions?
Abstaining.
Let's see, Bruce, Al, Lynn, and Ann are abstaining. And chair votes affirmative, and the minutes of January 4th, 2023 are approved.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th, 2023.
A motion by Al. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion on the minutes of January 11th? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions?
Abstaining.
Bruce, Ted, Al, Ian, Lynn.
Nope.
Oh,
I
that's
voted
right,
aye.
you were here last meeting, okay. Chair was affirmative, and the minutes of January 11th, 2023 are approved. Any regional impact determinations, Kelly?
None this
I
evening,
didn't
Mr. Chair.
see any there. And discussions with town staff, anything for us, Kelly?
I am still putting together, as we discussed previously, the training or workshop regarding our review process. My intention is to have that ready for you in April. We have a joint meeting with the Heritage Commission scheduled for March 8th, so that'll take up that month's work session.
That's to discuss the lookbook. The commission would like to update it and would love to have the planning board input on it also. Since the planning board makes the final decision, Heritage Commission makes the recommendation to the planning board.
Mr. Chairman, could you explain a little for the public what a lookbook is?
The lookbook, it's on our website, and it has various pictures of buildings, so forth, some from town, some from out of town, that were put together probably in the vicinity of maybe 8-10 years ago by a gentleman named Tom Bianchi, who was on the Heritage Commission. And we had, I know, debates with the Heritage Commission on what we liked, and figure the best way to show something is a picture. We have our, regulations that are in our site plan regs in regards to building design, but at least this puts it into, perspective. So the old Chinese proverb is one picture is worth 1,000 words, which is true. And that's where the, commission can say, this is what we like, and what we don't like as far as what is Londonderry. And I know in my early days, as a selectman, when a developer or, a potential investor in town would come, you would just say, take a ride around town, see what the buildings look like. Go down 102, see what the buildings look like. That's what we like. So that's what we will be discussing on the 8th. And let's see, I just want, anything else, Kelly?
No,
I think that's it. Will we be having, in the future also, the growth statistics for 2022? Woodmont will be presenting their annual report for 2022. And just want to mention that this Friday, the 10th, at 7 p.m. is the school deliberative session in the high school cafeteria, and encourage people to participate and go. And then the next day, the 11th of February, at 9 a.m. in the high school cafeteria, there will be the deliberative session of town meeting. So that's where the ballot gets set up for will be the 7th of March. Will be a town meeting day. You'll be able to vote on candidates for office and also the town budget and warrant articles. So please participate. Okay, anything from the board? Okay, we'll go to a public hearing. We have a public hearing for a rezoning request to rezone 206 Rockingham Road, tax map 15, lot 26. Granite YMCA, the owner and applicant from Commercial 1, zoning Commercial 1, Commercial 2, and Agricultural Residential 1 to C2, Commercial 2 for all of them. So this is a combining of the hodgepodge of zoning that is there. So,
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, I'm Stephen Keach, civil engineer with Keach Nordstrom Associates in Bedford, representing the Granite YMCA. Brings us here tonight is a zoning petition that was submitted to the council, and obviously, planning board has an opportunity to make a recommendation as to whether you would like to see the council approve or disapprove the rezoning request. What before you is land that the YMCA, the Granite YMCA, has accumulated over the last 25 years. The larger piece, which is the C1 piece, and the lighter shaded tan color on the drawing was originally an art gallery in 1998 that had failed at the time that the Y ended up with the property and began the Nutfield YMCA. In the intervening years, the Y ultimately acquired 4 other parcels and have used several of them in expanding their programs. In 2017, at a recommendation of former planning director Colleen Mayu, we voluntarily merged all of the 5 parcels to create the 15.12 acre parcel that exists today. At or about that same time, we were encouraged to pursue the petition that is in front of the town at this point to get rid of the zoning quilt that was created, obviously with the merger of the parcels doesn't change the zoning. And what we have is sort of a zoning quilt where parcels are zoned both C1, C2, and AR1, as you see represented by the colors on the drawing. On the drawing, the total holdings of the Y are represented and outlined in the blue line. The darker tan color is the C2 district. The white color is the AR1 district. And the lighter, again, is C1. And I think we've got a little bit of performance overlay in there too, just to sugar everything. So what the petition that was submitted to council, there's a purpose of rezoning, a little narrative attached to the application, and probably for conciseness, I'll read it verbatim. This rezoning application applies to map 15, lot 26, 206 Rockingham Road. The property is owned by Granite YMCA. The YMCA previously acquired and consolidated 5 lots to create one 15.19 acre lot on which they are currently function. As a result of the parcel being comprised of multiple smaller parcels, the current zoning overlaying the property is fragmented. The property includes AR1, C1, C2, and Route 28 Performance Zoning District overlay. To simplify the application of the zoning requirement for future development and expansion of the property, the applicant seeks to consolidate the zoning for the entire parcel to C2. The current use is permitted in the C2 zoning district and would be the same zoning as 2 abutting lots to the west of the same zoning as the abutting lot to the east on Clark Road. So basically, everything that you see around it is the darker color, is the C2 is the prevailing district along Rockingham Road. This rezoning will not modify the existing use. There will be no impact on the health, safety, or general welfare of the community. The property lies in the G5 retrofit growth sector, in which the master plan seeks to introduce activity centers. The property is east of area designated as North Village Artisan District. The current use of the YMCA fits well within the goals of the master plan. Therefore, the rezoning of the property to C2 is reasonable. Again, this is kind of a housekeeping matter that after we consolidated or merged the property several years ago, we were encouraged to do. In the intervening time, YMCA has had a change in executive directors. Hal Jordan retired. And in late 2019, we'd actually prepared an application to do exactly what we're here seeking to do tonight that was never submitted due to the onset of the pandemic. So basically, this is a house cleaning matter. There is no immediate development plan or anything that this is reliant on. I think it's probably clear that at some point in the future, the Y will continue its pattern of growth at the Nutfield YMCA as the programs need to modify from time to time to fit demand of the people who use the Y. But other than that, for all intents and purposes, this application that's before you, petition that's before the council, is here just for house cleaning purposes. If there's any questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, what we'll do, we'll go to staff input there, we'll go to the board, and then we'll go to the public to get comments and questions answered there. Kelly?
So Mr. Keach put it perfectly. This is, in staff's view, essentially a housekeeping item. It will make future zoning and determinations easier. And so should the board find that the request is reasonable and consistent with our master plan and the surrounding uses, then a recommendation to the council for formal approval would be advised.
Okay, thank you. For the board, I'll start with Ann.
Okay, I noticed doing some more research that the 2 properties that are Zone C2 were changed from C1 in 1990, I believe, according to the town records. A January 10th, 1990 planning board meeting mentions those 2 parcels. A request was made by Osvaldo Varani, and the planning voted unanimously to change them. Art, I think you were a member of the board back then.
Yes,
You remember that vote,
I remember when the Y came in, I remember the art gallery too, so.
right?
Yeah, 1990, the Y didn't own anything here.
Excuse me?
In 1990, the Y didn't own anything.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I think there was a plan that was worked out eventually, and I think the town was involved also.
It was.
And I just want to mention also, I'm familiar with the property on the corner because it was the lot where the Morrison House
That's correct.
Museum building was, and it was moved in December of 1990 to its present lot at 140 Pillsbury Road. But I also see, when I'm looking at that property, how much of it is bordered by AR1 district residences, and also the rail trail, and above the rail trail, another AR1 property. So a good portion of this development has residential borders. I'm interested in hearing what the public says, who may be abutters to your property.
And you will hear, I had talked to Michael Eaton, he's here to speak, and perhaps others are too.
That would be fine. I'm glad to hear that we have some residents who are abutters here to speak. But what I see is a property that's mostly C1, and changing it to C2 will bring a little more intense, could bring up more intense uses.
Well, again, the manner in which the YMCA acquired this, I think it's pretty much safe to say it will always be the Y.
Right, but if you're not the Y, other uses can come into the property.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult for it not to be the Y because there was, some of the land was bequeathed or donated with a mission statement that if Y were to relinquish ownership of it, they couldn't sell it.
Okay, so I'm just surprised you're not going for all C1 instead of a C2 district.
Again, this goes back to recommendation of your staff in 2017, when we merged the properties. This was unfinished business that dates back that far.
But it was the Y back then.
It was, but the proposal before you tonight was a commitment that was made that far ago.
Commitment by who?
Us, the YMCA.
Okay.
When we voluntarily merged 5 parcels to create one, we discussed the outcome, not changing the zoning, obviously. We
Right.
created a zoning quilt, didn't we? And, rezone it to something. What's the something? Colleen's opinion was it should be C2 because the property, so that it fronts on Rockingham Road to both the north and the south are also C2.
Right, but across the street from it on
Is-
Rockingham Road is
yeah.
C1
Yeah,
too.
I mean, to the Y, it probably doesn't matter what it is. I mean, our uses will work. It's the Y, it's an institution, it's not it's an institutional use.
But the zoning goes with the property.
Correct. But what I want you to understand, Ann, is that if the Y ever wanted to pull up its tent stakes and move on, because of the property being one and provisions that are attached to the acquisition of one or more of the 5 parcels, they could not sell it for typical C2 use. They couldn't sell it for anything because it would have to be given back to the direction from which it came.
They could not sell it for.
Now, if somebody gives you something for a particular use, you donate land for a library to a municipality.
Right,
If the library isn't wanted or needed anymore, can be reverters to go back to the heirs, successors, or assigns of the,
right, but we don't have that document or any information.
no, but I'm telling you that that's there. Okay, I didn't anticipate that question, but it's there. But I don't know what that really has to do with zoning, with the petition.
Because of the neighbors also around the property, that's why I was, and the effect any more intensive use in the future would have on it. Because you're explaining there's some restrictions that we don't know about.
But what I think is fairly obvious is that, given the commitment that the Granite Y has made to the Nutfield Y, that I think we can plan on a YMCA occupying this property throughout our lifetimes.
No more questions at this time.
Okay. Deb?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Jason?
No
Lynn?
Nope, I guess I'd like to hear from the abutters at this point in time, but I don't have any questions right now for Mr. Keach.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yanni?
I guess my question is, does the side yard setback to residential, does it change from C1 to C2?
No, it's not, it's the same.
So it's
So they'll still be
if
afforded the
they
same
ever
buffer.
did anything out there in the C1 or C2, there would be a substantial side yard setback
Correct.
to that residential area?
That's correct.
I mean, would we not have a buffering requirement as well?
I
Residential.
believe that's what you're referring to, the
Yeah, there's
buffer
a
requirement.
There's, yeah, it's
There's an
the
additional
side
buffer.
yard setback, the buffer.
Yeah.
to-
Correct, that remains in
abutting
place.
Yeah.
Onto the residential land is pretty substantial. Should actually take a lot of
Exactly.
that area out of development anyhow, right?
Isn't
Because
it
then
like
you have
50
your
feet?
wetlands in there and what have you, so. Okay, I'm all set.
Good.
On Gianni's point, I forget what the setback is for the C2, because the only potential area to expand
50 feet.
would be on the right side of the building,
It's 50 feet,
50 feet,
the buffer.
the buffer. And I think it makes sense to combine them all to be the same zoning if they ever do need to expand off to the right side of the building.
I mean, and then you have your wetlands buffer, which is a lot of that lot is wetlands, so, you know, all that.
I'm saying down here, that's the only area that they can expand,
Yeah.
to the right of the building, down there.
So I think that plays into the fact that the way that they got ownership of it and the development restrictions on the lot probably
Oh, yeah.
will always kind
Yeah,
of
the
keep it.
big
as a line,
section,
but,
they can't really do anything with anyways.
yeah.
But the only area that they could is down near the residential that's at the bottom here, would be right down here, if they did need to expand. But I think it makes sense to just make it one zone. That way it could, if they ever do need to expand, it makes sense. I'm all set.
Okay. Bruce?
Nope, I like clean maps, so that will help it
All set?
stay in, one zoning is more prudent than having this hodgepodge.
Okay, are there any abutters or anyone from the public have questions, comments, concerns? And you come up to the microphone here, or you can stand, so the choice is yours. I need just officially name and address, please. Yeah, you can stand there, or you can sit next to Steve there.
I'll stand.
Oh, okay.
Sitting all day.
I took a shower and everything, Michael.
No, I appreciate Steve. My name is Michael Lee, for the record.
Yes.
I live at 16 Clark Road, so I'm across the street from this property. I guess we had an informal conversation with Steve prior to the start of the meeting, and he answered some questions, and I appreciate his time. I do have a few questions about the difference between the C2 and the C1. I'm not that familiar with the requirements and the buffer zones for commercial property versus, up against residential property, although we're surrounded by commercial property these days. So if this were to remain a parcel of C1 versus C2, is there a greater or lesser buffer zone on this?
No.
Kelly, I think the buffer zone
It remains
is
50
is
feet.
the same.
The same dimensions requirement, okay. My other question speaks to what you, I think it was Ann who asked some questions about what could possibly be, the land be used for in the event that the Y would relinquish it. I understand Steve's point of view that there's some caveat about reverting the land away from the donated property that it was. What's the difference between the C1 and the C2 range of use?
Yeah, it's basically intensity of use. C1 is a lighter use, C2 is a heavier use. I don't know, you could probably go through some of the details, Kelly.
So I pulled up the use table from
Oh.
our zoning ordinance, just to highlight a couple of the minor use differences. For example, recreational facilities are permitted in C2 and are not in C1. Drive-in theaters are permitted in C2 and not C1, so as you can see, it's slightly more intense uses. I will say that I have not reviewed and am not familiar with the legal documentation that Mr. Keith referenced. But if there are restrictions on the property, from a legal standpoint, we could certainly evaluate that if and when we needed to figure out what in fact is permitted on the property as it's owned currently by the Y versus if it was sold. But that's not something that we would typically analyze at this point.
C1 is basically, like office use type of thing. It could be somewhat more intensive type office use than like, C3, which is light office use. C2 is more of the, you can conduct, like repair work, that type of stuff, so.
What we've seen on the street out on Rockingham Road, and the property behind me is where the Donovan property is.
Yes,
And that,
yes.
yeah. So I guess I'm going to just say that I'd be more in favor of the property remaining the C1. I do think that it's justifiable to put it all together as one parcel. But right now, the larger portion is C1, and I'm wondering why we can't just keep it at that versus go to C2. That'd be my input on that, and I'm just a butter. The other questions I have relate to, I've seen the Y grow, and there's a parking problem on there when they have events. I would assume that additional parking may be in the works, maybe not this year or next, but I would assume that they're gonna need more parking. And it seems likely that they would encroach onto where the Morrison House used to be and this other little AR1 property. And I would be concerned if traffic would be permitted to exit that property onto Clark Road. We've seen a lot of growth on Clark Road and usage. Over on Sanborn Road, there are 96 apartments that were built recently. And most of those people prefer to come down Sanborn Road to Clark Road and go out that way. So there's a lot of traffic. The other thing that had happened during the pandemic is a lot of the folks who were getting their kids to school at North School preferred to drive them there. And it's their logical choice is to come down Clark Road, get on a Sanborn Road, and then they can queue right into the school versus coming in the other way and looping around, and there's a bit more traffic that way. So we see a very heightened use. So my concern is, would traffic from the property of the Y be permitted to exit onto Clark Road, which is a residential street? And probably the last thing I'd like to speak to is this wetland property, which is directly across from mine and across from one of my neighbors and abutting one of my other neighbors. Now, that's wetland. If it went to C1 versus C2, or is there any likelihood that that wetland could be changed and turned into an activity area that could be another ball field, filled in, and then parking with it, and then exiting out onto Clark Road? Those are our concerns, and.
Which area are you?
I'm sorry?
Which area are you talking about now of the
The
property?
wetland area is, forgive me just a minute. On your map,
To the north,
it's the property that borders Clark Road and the rail trail.
Okay,
It's opposite Lot 75. My property is Lot 65-1. And you can see that there is wetland that's highlighted in the shaded area there. We know that these vernal pools are filled with water. Usually they dry up in July and then again fill in the fall. So there's always standing water there for about 8 or 9 months out of the year. So understand that there would be a lot of hurdles to jump if they tried to change the property use and interfere with the wetlands. Is this potentially something that we could face later?
I mean, I don't know what their growth plans are or anything, but, I mean, if they were gonna do anything with that property, you would have to go through, site plan review, you have to go through the Conservation Commission, depending upon the size of the wetlands, they would have to have the basic dredge and fill permit from the state, and probably there would have to be the alteration of terrain permit and so forth, so, I mean, just looking at what there is for wetland, it looks like, to me, there'd be no entry point there at all. I mean, this is just looking at it, and, you know, I don't know what they could ask of the conservation or DES in regards to, you know, the wetland. I think they would generally frown on any filling or anything like that.
Right now, Mr. Chairman, there is no plan for the area, but I will tell you that several years ago, probably close to a decade ago, we tried to accommodate the construction of a ball field. If you look on the plan, you'll see that in the middle parcel, there is a ball field, a soccer field. The original idea was to put that over on the parcel that Michael speaks of. It doesn't fit. So that piece has not only got the wetland, but it's also topographically challenged. Compound that with the fact that you have AR1 on 4 sides of it. And there's not much development potential on that. You circumscribe a 50-foot buffer around it, the buffer on the wetland, and then you deal with the topography. I think that land is just kind of along for the ride.
Are you talking about the ball field that's
most
directly
northerly-
above the
Yeah,
rectangular
we
AR1
tried to
area?
fit that on the odd-shaped piece to the north. It's across the street from Michael's house.
Oh, you tried putting it on there?
Yeah.
Next to the rail trail, that property?
In that, yeah.
Okay, but you did put it on the property
We did, yeah, that's
above-
why it ended up there. The original idea, Ann, was where the ball field landed, that's used in the summer programs, was to retain that parcel, because that portion of the parcel for some future use. You know, have the passive stuff to the north, but it just didn't fit. And that's not a full-size ball field by any stretch of the imagination.
But didn't you get a variance also to encroach on the 50-foot?
Yes, to put the ball field there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it just simply would not fit on that odd-shaped piece to,
It's a very nice natural area now.
yeah, and I think it's probably gonna stay that way, other than maybe having a few campers out there doing something in the summer, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they do that now.
They do,
Just like
yeah,
on the
they have-
rail there.
Yeah, they use it as part of their outdoor program, as woods.
Thank you.
I think it'll probably be that way for a long time.
I just want to mention, I went through the use table and looked at the differences between the C1 and C2. And a possibility of motor vehicle station, limited service, warehouse and storage, 250,000 square feet or larger. Wholesale businesses, same size, hotels, manufacturing over 250,000 square feet, motels, self-storage, and a drive-in theater. Interesting mix of things. And if, Kelly, can you tell me if I was accurate saying that? Is anything I got incorrect?
I believe a majority, if not all, was accurate. I wasn't,
Okay.
you know, double checking as you mentioned it, I just pulled it up, but there are certain uses in the C2 that are not expressly permitted by right, but by conditional use permit. And if you see the C underneath there, that essentially means they would have to still go through the planning board process for any of those uses.
I checked between the differences straight between the C1 and C2 going down.
And I'm here to tell you that the YMCA is not in any of those businesses.
Correct. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think even to try to fit some of those things, oh,
You move the microphone closer to you?
Oh, sorry,
You speak softly, so.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
even though it's-
I'm done speaking for the second. What did you miss? Sorry.
I didn't miss anything.
Oh, okay,
just the folks at home.
sorry. I
Yeah, I think
apologize.
the shape of what the Y owns wouldn't be conducive to any of that. I think it would be definitely problematic, very problematic, so. Whether they owned it or, someone else owned it, it's just.
To Michael's question, he did ask a very good question about driveway access to Clark Road.
Yes,
We have that piece of frontage that what is the Morrison lot and the trailer lot is what we've always called them. They're now one parcel combined with the rest. At one point, we did look at extending drive access in that direction to have a curb cut at Clark. And I think that was before acquisition of the trailer lot. And we opted not to because of the proximity that would be to the intersection of Clark and Rockingham. Instead, when we rebuilt the parking lot in front of the Y or to the south of the Y, from its original condition, it now has a looped fashion, so in the summer, when people are picking up and discharging campers, they can come in and go in a counterclockwise or counterclockwise pattern around there. And so we accomplished the same outcome that we sought to do to facilitate the expansion of the summer camp. Oh, that was at least 15 years ago, by different means. Again, I would be very concerned with proximity of any drive that had any volume as an engineer, being at Clark Road. So to be honest with Michael, we did look at that at one point and we opted not to because we were afraid it would create static at that intersection.
it looked like it would be very, very difficult, basically, I don't think we would allow it because that intersection.
Well, I didn't think you would either. That's probably why I didn't propose it. But I did want to let you know that we did look at that at one point in time.
Actually, Steve, I think you've reduced the number of curb cuts onto Route 28 and Clark Road because when you combined all the properties, each one of those had their own curb
Well,
cuts
that's,
at one point.
that's
in time,
true, yes.
So you had the curb cut off of Clark. You could have had a curb cut off of.
That's right.
additional one.
And we basically have 5 properties, what were 5 properties now with one curb cut. So, and it seems to work well.
Well, I think that addresses.
Does that help you, Michael?
The questions. Yes, thank you, Steve. I do appreciate that. So again, I think that from my standpoint, I'd prefer to see it just remain as C1 and the whole parcel become C1 versus C2. I don't know why there'd be an advantage to changing it to C2, but I'd prefer to say C1. And I want to thank you for your time, and I do want to say that we like having the Y in the neighborhood, and we can hear the kids playing during the outdoor time, and the fact that there's kids that are playing well, joy and happiness, we like it in the community. So it's not about trying to get rid of the Y. It's really just about how the property is managed. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I just need your name and address, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Menard, and so I'm happy to be here tonight to tell you how I feel about the rezoning. And so my concern is the traffic, because it's gotten really bad on Clark Road. There's always, the mothers still drive their children to school. And sometimes, trying to get out of my driveway is not fun. Just the traffic concerns. And I too am concerned about the wetland across the street, because I'm right next door to the Eatons. And, to see that disturbed in any way would not be good. I just think it's, I love the kids out there. In the summer, I sit on my porch, I can hear them playing hide and seek in the woods, and that's great. I enjoy that. I enjoy listening to the birds, the woodpeckers out there, they like wake me. And so I enjoy the solitude that I get. But sometimes I don't get it, I don't get the peace and quiet, with the traffic. That really gets to me, but I would like to see it remain as it is, because I think that's what I'd like to see. That's it.
Could I ask you a question? Which property is yours?
75.
And if you look where Kelly's panning right now,
Oh, that one, same
Once
one?
he gets through.
Oh, next door, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Deb?
Thank you, Art. I'd like to say something to the two residents that just spoke about traffic. I will strongly, strongly suggest, 4 times a year, there is a traffic safety meeting. It meets right here. I would suggest that you come, if you're talking about speeders or whatever. They will work up a solution for your problem, maybe put one of those speed things and or have an officer sit there, a couple of times, just to get people thinking, oh, there might be people sitting there. So if I would strongly, I don't know when the next meeting is. I think it might be April, I think, but,
I don't know if have they met this year at all?
I think they met in like January,
met
so.
in January, I believe.
April maybe, April, May. It's on, if you go to the town website and you look at the calendar, you hit all and then click out, you'll see it. If not, call and talk to Kirby. I think her extension is 120. And you can ask her when the next meeting is.
It is April.
It is April? So it's usually the first Monday in April at 6 o'clock here. And that's where you come and you voice all of your traffic, safety, security kind of issues. And they help work with the police, fire to resolve those issues. Okay? Thank you. You're welcome.
I mean, traffic is a common problem in town, so traffic is a common problem, and both the council and we collect complaints about it here, so. It's not disappearing. I think what exists is basically enforcement by the police, and let the traffic safety committee know also. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is David Zaitsev. I'm the owner of Lot 74. I don't know, the maps aren't updated to my name, but I bought the property.
Yeah, they're a little probably behind some of
Yeah,
that stuff.
but nonetheless, they abut me, or the YMCA abuts me on 2 sides there. And just given hearing the concerns that going up to the C2 would provide all these, additional uses, as the abutter, it doesn't seem fit for the area that, the commercial, businesses around. Clark Road is a residential street, from the start. The start at Rockingham Road is commercial, there's businesses, but the rest of it, other than the piece that abuts, my part, it's all residential. And just the higher uses that are allowed with, C2 doesn't seem to fit this area. And I understand that it can't be done in certain areas physically, but then it just would make sense to leave it at C1 in that regards. And it would be, it would be fitting for the setting of the neighborhood, basically. And if down the line, I understand that that's not their intentions anytime soon, but things change and owners change and, you know, planning boards change, things change. So, you know, I would be, you know, pretty against it going to like a C2 in that regards. So, thank you for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else? You got Ray Breslin.
I'm not on the bottom.
You don't have to be, you don't have to be Ray. You're a member of the public, and you have a right for input.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive, and I've heard what this gentleman said here, and but I really would have to wonder the purpose of changing it. What is the purpose? Like these folks here say, why not just leave it the way it is? I mean, what is the idea? Why are we changing it? And what I don't see the necessity. Also, the item about traffic comes up here. Look, this is, part of this at least is along Rockingham Road, which is extremely heavily traveled. And we got a lot of things going to be happening along that stretch of road. We got a 30-inch water line coming down the hill here. We got a heavy construction coming up here. And we got some real important issues that we need to deal with. And it sounds like we're talking about a change in zoning. I think they have a right to come before the planning board. Maybe they don't have to go before zoning, but it seems to me if you're going to have a change in zoning, first off, it has to be for the benefit of the people of Londonderry over the developer. And I'm not even sure whether we're talking about a developer here. Can I get a clarification on who actually owns this property? Sure. Does the Y or does someone else?
The Granite YMCA.
Granite YMCA owns all of these parcels that are either in...
No, it's one parcel. And to get back to your question of purpose, it was at one point, Ray, 5 parcels.
Yeah,
The YMCA has acquired them over the last 25 years,
okay,
mostly one by one.
okay,
In 2017, they voluntarily merged them to create one 15.19 acre parcel.
okay,
So it was 5 parcels became one
uh-huh,
to make the campus.
right,
When you consolidate parcels, the zoning that they are today, the land that was once 5 parcels, had 3 different zoning districts. When you look at the blue meandering geometry of what the Y owns on the illustration, to the left of the illustration, the rectangle at the bottom, the Morrison lot, and the lot to the north that came in from another direction that was once the, I think, Doucette property, there's already C2. They're presently zoned and have been zoned C2 longer than the Y has owned it.
Yeah.
The trailer lot that fronts on Clark Road is zoned AR1, agricultural residential 1, and it was when the Y bought it. So when you merge or consolidate properties or subdivide properties, it doesn't change the zoning. So right now, we have a parcel that is comprised of a single parcel comprised of 3 separate zoning districts. What that is tantamount to is a zoning quilt. And when we merged those properties about 5.5 years ago, it was recommended by a former planning director that we pursue a zoning change to bring it all into one parcel of land, one zoning district. as your current director indicated, it makes it easier for administration of zoning code and so forth. We haven't been in a rush to do it because we aren't proposing anything. In fact, as I said earlier, we had an application prepared that would have been submitted over 2 years ago had it not been for the pandemic. It got set aside, and that's that. But why C2 as opposed to C1? If you look at table 4.1 of the zoning ordinance and you go down to the institutional or civic uses, what do we have? The YMCA, I guess, portions of the program fall into the category of community center, public facilities, recreational facilities, comma, public. I think the Y is all of those things. And all three of those are permitted by right. What they're already doing is permitted by right in the C2 district. One of those uses, recreational facilities, public, is not permitted in the C1 district. So by going to the C2 district, all three of those uses, and you tell me which one the Y belongs in, because I'm not sure, I think it could be any or all of them. It gives, as your planning director indicated correctly, the most flexibility for the owner, the Y, and the staff of the town of Londonderry to, as things may change over the time. The YMCA programs change from time to time in reaction to the needs of the public. We talk about the people of the town of Londonderry. Well, I think the YMCA is there for the people of the town of Londonderry.
Certainly.
It's an amenity, we're not developers, right? So I think the reason C2 over C1 is because of this very zoning table here, and it gives, as Kelly indicated, the most flexibility in manipulating things when they come forward in the future. What I'm also telling you, Ray, is there is nothing pending. We have no proposals to do anything right now. That may change, and it likely will change, and that will come with an invitation to come back and see these folks. Because anything we do to change the site plan, we'll have to amend the site plan and be back here presenting to you, Mike, and his other neighbors, all, whatever that may be at the time. But there is nothing now.
Okay, let me just say, I'm having a little problem grasping. I don't see anybody here from the Y.
Well, I'm their representative.
I understand, you're representing them, but I'm having a little problem figuring why this is going to be a benefit to the Y.
I'm not sure it is, to be honest with you,
Well, then why are we going through this?
because of a commitment we made.
We like, Ray,
It's house.
town likes to have one parcel under one zone.
Well, that makes it
This is-
neat.
This is what's required, so
Well,
it's a little bit delayed. We've had other instances where properties have been subdivided. Part of the property is agricultural residential one, and the other part of the property is industrial one. So we've rezoned those properties to agricultural residential one because the developer wants to build houses on them. And that's because we want, one parcel to have the same zone, 'cause otherwise it gets
So
rather-
are you telling me that it's a requirement for the town to make it all one type of zoning? Is that?
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
that's. No, wait a minute.
I mean, that's what we want to have, Ray. And that's
Well,
what
if
I
we-
mean, there are properties that have, are split zoned. We tend not to like split zones.
Okay, the thing of it is it being done for the benefit of the citizens of Londonderry, and particularly the people who are abutting? And this whole thing about traffic, we got some serious issues with traffic. We got,
Traffic is another thing, Ray.
Well, no.
This is about zoning. This is not about traffic. So you're comparing apples and oranges here.
Two things, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to help Ray. Most of the times when you see rezoning proposals, it's to facilitate development or facilitate subdivision.
yep,
What we've done here is the opposite. We've taken 5 parcels and made one. And those 5 parcels that became one happened to reside in 3 separate zoning districts at the time they were 5. What we want to do is to make one parcel, which we already did almost 6 years ago, through voluntary merger. We weren't compelled to do it, we weren't asked to do it, we did it. At that time, the logical thing to do, as your chairman has indicated, was to perfect it being one parcel by putting it all in one zoning district. And for reasons I mentioned from the zoning table, there's those 3 uses, all civic uses, that regardless of what a proposal that the Y or the existing uses or, anything that may, happen now, have been happening for 25 years or may happen in the future that relates to the operations of the Y, is going to fall into one or all 3 of those categories. All 3 of those categories are permitted in C2, only 2 of them are permitted in C1. That's precisely the reason why C2, plus the fact that along the corridor of Rockingham Road to the north, to the south, and substantially to the south, the prevailing zoning theme along Rockingham Road is in fact C2 in this area.
If I may, Art? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ray, if you think of it, a lot of times, it's house cleaning, they call it, right? Housekeeping. No, a lot of times it happens here at this board that, oh, this piece of, and they don't go looking for it, but if someone just, it changes hands. Someone bought your property and your property happened to have 2 zones. And at that point, it gets noticed because it got surveyed and they say, oh, can we make it all one zone? We see it here at the board a lot of times, and it's really just housekeeping to make it, to make it all this standardized, really, is what it is. And I understand, I really wanted the C1, but I do understand where they're coming from with the use part of it. And I think that that's the thing you have to look at, is it really is just housekeeping to make sure that it's all the same. So
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
it's just so all of they do it to a lot of the properties. I mean, I've seen it here numerous times that we've had to clean it up.
It's a consolidation so that, the
So
order
that
of
it's
the property
consistent.
is the same as the zoning of the property.
Well, here's the thing that makes the whole thing easy. Okay, you have one parcel zoned with 3 different things. The Y wants to put a 10 by 20 addition on their building.
Well,
Can you tell, no, look, I'm giving
You
you
go
an
ahead.
example.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me,
Al's talking right.
can you tell me which one of those this board should classify that under? Or should we roll the dice?
I can't tell you.
Okay, I see, this is the other benefit of having the whole parcel as one. So I want to put my 10 by 20 addition on, it's all C2, it must meet the regulations when it comes before this board for C2. I don't have to guess, maybe if it's 20 feet to the northwest, I'll just take a wild guess and it'll be AR1. That's what the benefit is, especially if somebody wants to come before the board, like the Y, they want to add a field, they want to put a small addition on. We now know what regulations they have to comply with because they're in a C2 district, the whole parcel.
Okay.
That's the easiest way I can
Yeah,
explain.
I just think if you're going to do something like the Y, they should have a vision and a plan. And I would think they probably do. It's some things they want to do, like put a ball field in, put a parking lot in, whatever. If they got a vision and they want to do something, and it's necessary to change it to C2, okay. I'm not sure what they can't do in C1. I don't know, but I'm not an expert. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to speak. But like this gentleman said here, things change, boards change. And as far as the fact the property was given by somebody as a gift, is that the case? I don't know.
It's a little deeper than that, but there's provisions, so we.
Okay, yeah, but whoever gave it may have passed on. It could have happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, who knows? and sometimes those things can change. So,
Okay,
thank you.
welcome, Ray. Bruce?
I was wondering if you could just give me a quick little background, and I know the answer to this, but what does the YMCA represent? What is it, what's
the
its
initials
mission?
represent?
What's its mission?
Oh, its mission is a civic organization in the care in the Nutfield YMCA. It's predominantly youth programs. You have the summer program, you have the after-school program, you have a mother's program during the day, you have exercise classes for older folks. Basically, it's recreational and wellness programs for the community.
Are there any restrictions for membership, or you just join?
I'm not aware of any. I'm a benefactor.
Sure.
I give them money every year. I'm here tonight.
Yep.
And, I just don't question what they do because it all seems good.
Bruce? The applicant is the YMCA, which you're representing, correct?
Correct.
And so for me, the simplest thing is if we look at the table, right, the difference between C1 and C2 for your application would be that recreational facilities public is not allowed on C1 zoning.
That's correct, Bruce.
As opposed to C2 zoning.
Yeah.
And would you say it's fair to say that the YMCA has recreational facilities that can be accessed by the public on that lot? Or any
Absolutely.
of those 5 combined lots?
Yeah, they're there today.
So to me, that's how
almost
that's how
after-
I arrive at my conclusion.
It's almost after the fact, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's right. I mean, one could say that it's not even permitted in
Yeah,
the
but
current.
one thing that was overlooked, and probably part by my hole in my presentation, Al picked up on, and that is, we come in and we want to put a shed, to store equipment in for a summer program, and they want to put it here on the ground because of the fact that it has proximity to where the activity's going to be. Well, we want to put that on that little white blotch there. That's going to be a problem. We're going to be at the zoning board, and the summer will be over by the time we can build the shed, right? If it's in C2, not so much,
Or
right?
maybe a pickleball court.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'm a hockey player. I
And
used
so
to be.
that, to me, for the rest of the board, that's how I'm arriving at my decision. It's not a matter of
Yeah.
whether or not it does not or does meet C1. It's the applicant is the YMCA. They're
Yeah.
requesting C2. The other area that attaches or touches this property is C2. It's in the Route 28 overlay district, so it's off of Route 28 as far as I'm concerned as what the property is. C1 versus C2, it's very difficult to even build on this property regardless of who it gets transferred to, but,
Yeah.
the owner right now is
Is the why.
the one.
Yeah, again, the whole point of being here and with this application, or petition, I guess is the correct word, is they accumulated 5 properties to use as a single use. They've put their stake in the ground by making them 5, taking 5, making them 1. Now let's catch up, let the zoning catch up to it.
Sure.
It's a bit overdue.
Mr. Chair.
Deb?
I just wanted to tell Bruce that the why is the family, is their mission, to take care of everyone in the family. I used to sit on the board for many years at the Y. It has a great mission. They do get a lot of use. My husband put in the axe throwing and the archery things that are
I stay away from that part when I'm over there.
and does a lot of the maintenance for them. And it's a great thing. And they do open it up to the public at night. Like the women's club used to have their meetings there. The green team uses it as a facility. So they allow the community to take advantage of their community. And we don't have a lot of facilities that people can have meetings at and activities at. So it's a very important piece to this community. It really is.
I agree.
Jenny?
I think that to prove the point that you guys are here for the long term too, is just when you consolidated all your lot lines, if you wanted to redevelop this property or sell it or what have you, you never would have taken that step. Because those lots that are abutting off of Clark Road, those were all residential at one point in time. That could have been a very attractive residential subdivision. So actually, to the abutters, you're probably gonna see that land in in its natural form being used by the Y for a longer term. Because if that was residential, it probably would have been snapped up already. And those are parcels that they added on over the course of time. They consolidated the lot lines, and they gave up significant value when they did that. Now they're just trying to conform with the rest of the plan, which was now simplify our zoning issue.
Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, Cindy Eaton at 16 Clark Road, other half of Michael Eaton. I remember when the Y acquired those other properties that are now in the C1 area. And we as abutters then came, and there was question about changing it to C2 at that time. And we asked that it not be changed to C2 because of, it could be, more concentrated commercial that we didn't want to see on a residential road, especially on the piece that, I guess it's on the north end, you call it the north end. There was fear that they could put a cut there for a parking lot, even though there is wetlands there. I've been in Londonderry long enough to know that wetlands can disappear, and that property can change hands. And so even though we love the Y, and the Y is a great community place, in the future, they may want to sell it and move to a bigger property. And that would lead to more C2 commercial properties, or whatever they want to use it for. Also, no one has mentioned the rail trail. The rail trail is also on that north end. And the rail trail people, I know that there was a property on next to the rail trail before that became a C2, and the rail trail people were very upset because they were not putting the right kind of buffer zone next to the rail trail. Right now, the rail trail goes along that property. If any of you have been on that rail trail, you'll know that there's a lot of trees, a lot of wildlife, beavers, birds, foxes, deer, turtles. My husband loves to go watch the turtles come out. And that's all on that part of that the rail trail borders on. So I would really hope that you would consider changing it to or keeping it to C1 so that we don't have to worry about C2 property and seeing a trucking industry place or a car place or a junkyard come up where right now it's a beautiful natural area. So I just want you to think about that, please. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else?
When it's back to
I was
us.
going to bring it back to the board anyway,
When you
for our
bring it back.
decision-making. And Lynn?
So I guess I'm going to take a contrary opinion to this application tonight. So the zoning mishmash, I'll call it that, I think it's kind of crazy. I think it should have been dealt with when the lots were all merged. I'm surprised it wasn't. I don't know what
Hence
the
the
minutes.
commitment, Lynn.
the commitment back then was that it would happen. But, you know, as, I think in general, this board takes rezoning very seriously. And, you know, and to Ann's point earlier, we zone the property, we don't zone the business. And the fact that the Y is looking to go to C2, which has more intensive uses than a C1, which is the bulk of their property today, and there's really no immediate plans. I haven't heard any reason why the Y wants to do this, other than a commitment to have it done. I just don't see a need to do it tonight. You know, down the road, if the Y wants to have a project and the project is in violation of whatever zoning, excuse me, is applicable to where they want to have that project, I think then we have this discussion. But I think tonight, I don't see a need to do it tonight.
Okay.
Art, quick comment. Question for Kelly. Didn't we just discuss that under C1, their current uses are not permitted? Is that correct?
It's not that they're not permitted, so they exist currently, so it's whether, I'm not certain if they've received a variance for the use itself or not, but they exist today, so they're either permitted or legal non-conforming uses.
But if they wanted to even expand on where the old Morrison House was or where the mobile home property was, they would not be able to do so.
That would need to be evaluated by ultimately the zoning administrator to determine how we're going to regulate that based on the 3 different zones. But we would need to understand, you know, details about what they're proposing to make that type of determination. But it would not be as, it would likely not be a straightforward answer. It would likely involve various forms of relief from multiple zoning districts.
Which would make it quite complicated, I think. And I think if their current use is usable under C2, correct?
What they're currently doing on the site is permitted today.
Well, I meant what they're currently using the site for is more under C2, not C1. Is that correct? By our code uses?
No.
Not necessarily. I mean, as was stated, the recreational use for public is permitted in C2, but not C1.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, but I'm not certain I could speak to the total, you know, percentage of the parcel that's being used for recreation use versus the other uses that they have. I don't know how,
Yeah,
how
it's
much.
it's hard to pigeonhole, right? And it's, I guess, almost 100% of the property is recreation, because what else you doing there? Unless you take an art class or something, right?
That's
You know?
recreation.
Hmm?
But that can be considered recreation as
Yeah,
well.
I suppose, but, you know, it's, I don't know, it's a civic use.
I have a technical question. Can we put conditions like they do at the zoning board? Like conditional, like,
So one thing I was going to mention just before I answer you, and this will answer that question, but, so this board is making a recommendation to the town council. The town council is a jurisdictional body that has the final say on how and if this is rezoned. So
Yeah, because I know,
in your, can I just finish the
sorry.
rest of her question?
Sorry.
In your recommendation to the council, you can include comment. You know, if you want to say, we think it should have A, B, C, if you approve it, you know.
so
You can
we
include
could
that in your
recommend that, oh,
recommendation.
we want to change it. I'm just making this up off my head, right? To just say C1 with the condition that they can use it for the one that's not in.
Change it to
So-
C1. What are you talking?
You certainly can do that.
I'm just
I
making
don't-
it up, like what we could or couldn't do. Could we put conditions on it that it can't be?
You can, I wouldn't recommend that you do that.
Okay, that's what because I've seen it done at ZBA, and I just wanted to see if it could apply here.
With
That's all.
rezoning requests, I wouldn't recommend putting conditions on it
Okay,
because you should be evaluating how it fits in with our master plan and the surrounding uses.
Yeah, the use of
It
it.
should be kind of a
Okay.
yes or no answer. If you can't determine that it is compliant or meets the master plan and the surrounding uses, then you'll need to, evaluate your decision or recommendation. But-
I know past history, we did do that, and I think between the attorney we had at the time and our current attorney, Mike Ramsdale, recommended that we don't do it because we could be getting into legal problems.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be easier to just leave them out instead of later getting into a court battle about it. So,
I do have one other question.
yes.
I don't know, Kelly, or if anybody on the board knows, is there a difference in assessed value between C1 and C2?
In the what value?
Assessed.
Oh, assessed.
I'm not sure. I don't think I,
I don't know if there'd be any
Could
tax
answer that.
impact, one way or the other, if it went from C1 to C2.
It's probably what is being used for, because I think businesses are taxed differently than like
Based on
residents.
what they're using?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's 4 methods they use for determining the taxation of, commercial businesses and so forth.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Board, what should we do?
Well,
I'll accept the motion.
I'm going to make a motion, okay? Because I do not want to be faced with a single lot that has very ambiguous 3 different zoning things. So I am going to make a motion to recommend to the town council approval of the rezoning request to rezone 206 Rockingham Road, map 15, lot 26, Granite YMCA, owner and applicant, from C1, commercial 1, C2, commercial 2, and AR1, agricultural residential 1, and Route 28 performance overlay to C2, commercial 2.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Ted. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay?
Nay.
2.
Nay.
2 nays, and I'm an abstention.
And Deb is abstaining.
She gets to vote on the real application.
Well, if I'm there, I
Yeah.
don't know when you're gonna come, so,
I don't either.
but I wanted to do the right thing.
Hope it's not 5.5 years. Thank you very much.
Okay, chair votes in the affirmative, so it is 6-1. And motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, 6-1.
Oh, 6-2.
I thought you did
6-2.
I thought you did Yeah.
6-1. Okay, all right.
That's the way, yeah, because it's
like a hockey stick.
in favor, opposed, and abstentions. Okay, any other business? Let's see, our meeting of the March 1st, we're going to have election of officers. So campaign season is going big time now, so,
You put a sign in your yard?
yeah.
Tell everyone they need volunteers for election day.
Okay, volunteers are needed for election day, so anyone who wants to do some civic duty work or more civic duty work can certainly
ready to do it.
participate. Election workers are always needed. So if no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second by Ted. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 We're adjourned, everyone. Thank you.